It's time for Zeb at the Ranch with your host, Zeb Bell, and newsworthy and noteworthy John Ellis. This podcast will always be brutally honest with integrity and honesty and without low-class, no-class cursing that's in vogue today with illiterate politicians. Now, Zeb at the Ranch.
What a beautiful day. Break out the deodorant. It's going to be another 90-plus afternoon, close to 100 again here this afternoon in southern Idaho. Zeb at the Ranch, episode 42. My goodness, we're having a good time. May God continue to bless the greatest country ever, and that, of course, is the United States of America. Glad to have you with us on Zeb at the Ranch podcast, and I'll be introducing my cohort in crime, John, in just a moment. First of all, our quote of the day, and I love this one, and it's really true, and if somebody's offended by this, good. Every dollar wasted on illegals is a dollar stolen from American families, and I think you would concur, John.
Don't get me started on that.
All right, we'll talk to you in just a minute. Hey, we've got a full bucket of water today on the program, and great folks coming on the show. First off, and I hope he makes it, we get a little worried about our guests sometimes and the telephones and the time differences with the different regions in the United States. First off, an old friend, attorney and author, John O'Connor from California. I'm really looking forward to having him come on talking about birthright citizenship. And then the terrorist, therapist, psychiatrist. I dare you to say that fast 5 times before we get kicked off the air. And that's Dr. Carole Lieberman. She is tremendous. I just really enjoy having her on the program. And finally, a Southern Idaho minister talking about our first president, George Washington, and his prayer at Valley Forge. And this should be really good. And before I go any further, I want to make an addition to the opening. Our prayers for Pastor Alex and his wife Barbara. They've gone through some health issues the last couple of weeks, almost a month now, and hopefully, underline that word, he'll be rejoining us next week.
Hopefully.
There you go. Right now, it is time for one of my very favorite segments, and I'm so glad that we started this with my dear friend John Ellis and his Libertarian Minute. And out of all the Libertarian Minutes, and this being episode 42, I think I've only disagreed with 1 or 2 of them, so good afternoon, my friend.
Yeah, I know a lot of my ideas are pretty radical and fringe out there, especially the idea of somebody being able to own an M1 Abrams tank in their backyard if they want, as long as they don't hurt somebody with it.
Well, yeah, come on out and check the tread on mine.
There you go. Anyway, in his dissent on birthright citizenship, Justice Clarence Thomas illustrated the absurdity of this doctrine because the U.S. could not even deny citizenship to U.S.-born children who are raised, quote, raised in foreign countries, join foreign armies, and fight wars against the United States.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
You know, I want to repeat that one more time because I don't think people realize that is a fact.
Yeah, if somebody comes by an anchor baby, you cannot deny them citizenship under the current framework. And they could be raised in a foreign country, they can join a foreign army, and they can fight wars against the United States, all while being a United States citizen.
That's right.
It's insane. Now, this is important. The law in the United States says, with few exceptions, that children of U.S. citizens who are born in a different country are legally considered citizens of the United States. Think about that for a second.
Mm-hmm.
If I have a child born to me in Mexico, that child is legally considered a citizen of the United States, not Mexico. Now, using our own legal standard, if I'm a citizen of Mexico and I have a child born to me in the United States, wouldn't that child be legally considered a citizen of Mexico?
We're in a mess.
We are. It doesn't make any sense, but there's a lot of that going on these days.
Amen.
The vast majority of foreigners who employ the anchor baby strategy are in it to gain access to free emergency health care, free government schooling, free housing, and other benefits paid for by you and me. As a libertarian, the only thing worse than stealing my money is to steal it and give it to somebody else. For the left, birthright citizenship is about gathering votes to keep themselves in power, and they're using my money to do it.
I find absolutely nothing nothing in your dissertation that I would disagree with. As a matter of fact, all your little Libertarian Minute did was make me madder than I was 90 seconds ago, because everything in there is the truth. And I still cannot understand how Justice Roberts made the vote against changing this, because my goodness sakes, there were even hospitals on the Texas border that were advertising packages to have their babies and then come into the United States as citizens. That happened just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, the funny thing is, though, is I do understand why he ruled that direction. It's because of the initial law that has allowed this, which in itself, in my opinion, is unconstitutional. The purpose of the 14th Amendment never was intended to allow this to happen.
You know, we'll talk about this when John comes in on the microphone, if he's hopefully going to be calling in. But how in the world could there be such a misconstruing of what really was meant back 250 years ago? Our forefathers never dreamed about people flying and driving and taking a boat, whatever, parachuting into the country just to give birth to their child and then automatically be citizens.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. And it used to be the way the British did it before America was born. And when they came to America, there's plenty of examples of our founding fathers talking about this and rejecting that idea.
Yeah.
And in fact, a lot of them didn't even look at the ability to vote for being something that everybody should be entitled to. The idea was, and this is what even Mises.org, the article that I read, said, is that unless you have skin in the game, you shouldn't be allowed to vote. So if you've been here a while and you've got, you're paying for things and contributing your part to the society, fine, you should vote. But if you're just here just to cast your vote, to vote for yourself for free money, that doesn't fly.
When you have had the opportunity over the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and it's getting progressively worse every night with the Democratic Socialists that are trying to obtain various positions in politics across the United States, and I'm not going to give them the allowance of saying they're socialists. They're nothing more than communists and Muslims that want to take over our United States of America. I'm going to be blunt about it. I don't want to see these people get the position of even dog catcher.
Yeah, they're just invaders that we've allowed in without them having to pack a gun or anything. They just walk right in.
Yeah. And I believe we're checking on John O'Connor right now. Hopefully, John's doing a great job, as he always does, with all the mechanics of our program, the technology. And we also want to remind you, too, that here we are at midsummer. And if you have any comments that you'd like to send to us for the program, any guest segments, etc., don't forget zeb@theranch@hotmail.com. Send those ideas to me. And I always have people question, well, I tried and I couldn't get it to go through. The first @ is the word @, zeb@theranch, then the @ hotmail.com, okay? And then don't forget to sign up for my blog every week, Cow Pies and Coffee Cups, and that's, of course, just go to zebbell.com, and we'll put you on the list of my weekly blog, Cow Pies and Coffee Cups, sponsored by, I want to give them a great big shout-out, one of the great sponsors I had while I was on the radio, and that's all the Les Schwab Tire Centers, so I thank them very much. John, you're running around in circles over there, and I don't envy you. What have you got? Anything extra for us before we try to get to our next guest?
Well, I just need a set of skates. That's all. Yeah, he's coming in now. So
all right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm really proud to have this.
Hi, this is John O'Connor.
John, are you there, buddy?
Yes, I am. I am here, and I can't. I had a video that Sutton Porter sent me a link, but I got on the link, and I'm just wondering if you had sent one by someone else other than Sutton.
Go ahead, John.
No, it should be whatever we set to Sutton, but don't worry about it. We've got you on the program. We're ready to go.
Yeah, John, I can see your smiling face, and of all the years that you used to be on my radio talk show, I had no idea you were as dapper and good-looking. You're not just a run-of-the-mill Cousin Vinny attorney. You look pretty sharp.
I like that. My opening statement still is, Everything that guy said was bushy.
Listen, John, you've written books, Postgate, How the Washington Post Betrayed Deep Throat, Covered Up Watergate, and Began Today's Partisan Advocacy Journalism. You've been a trial lawyer, an assistant U.S. attorney. I mean, you've done it all legally. But right now, I want to spend some time and have you explain to me your thoughts on this birthright citizenship that we were talking about just a few minutes ago. I got to tell you, this is a sore spot with this old cowboy because I'm sick and tired of the abuse that we're seeing with people coming into this country, literally dropping a child at a hospital, on a roadside park, whatever, and they're automatically citizens. Your thoughts?
Well, first of all, the birth tourism clearly can be outlawed. Now, there's a view by Kavanaugh that maybe you need to do it by legislation, but it's certainly not unconstitutional to keep out someone that's a birth tourist. And the root of the problem is that, both Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett are two, they're goody two-shoes, and if you take a simplistic, little reading of the amendment, the important amendment, yes, born in the United States and subject to its jurisdiction, well, it's been acknowledged. It's been acknowledged that this doesn't apply to a diplomat or a invading army or even of an Indian tribe that lives within the United States but has allegiance to the tribe. So, so certainly the birth tourism is a joke. It just clearly cannot support citizenship. The only reason that there's a law, a citizenship law, and there's also the amendment, but both of them dealt with the problem of African Americans who were born here but weren't citizens.
Yep.
And now it's making them citizens. And then so if you simply said, which was the intent, we're only recognizing births of people in this country who are born to citizens, that is really what they meant to say. However, the problem is blacks weren't citizens at the time, because they were just made citizens. So when you have a child of a slave, you're not born to a citizen who later on is made a citizen. So they had to write it the way they did. But that's just sort of an accident of history and of wording. The whole idea is that it's not, you don't get citizenship merely because you happen to be born on the soil. Also, generally when pioneers came over, when immigrants came over, there was no limit on them being able to come in, and they were automatically treated as citizens if they were domiciled here. And so, it's easy to confuse that situation with the one in which a bunch of migrants are coming from South America and other places, troublingly.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? They're not citizens. They're violating the law. Those are two different things. And I think if you come in and you do not recognize the jurisdiction of the United States over you as an immigrant, I don't see how you qualify. I've read these opinions. You read Thomas's opinion and you say, my gosh, the guy's right. It's very lengthy, goes out of his way to do this. I mean, his opinion is so much more sophisticated and at the same time realistic than the stuff that comes out from some of the majority. I'm just really sort of shocked to see the reasoning in there. So what do I say about that?
John, let me ask you something real quick, and then John wants a question with you. Is this correctable within the realms of President Trump's next 2 years? Is it correctable? Because I think you'll agree with me that if the next election going into 28-29 goes the wrong way and we get somebody like a Gavin Newsom or, good Lord help us, Kamala Harris, I think it's look out, the borders are open and everybody's coming on in. What are your thoughts?
Well, number one, that's going to happen. That's the terrible thing. That's going to happen if a Democrat gets elected. I don't care who it is. The borders are open, as we used to say as kids, ollie ollie oxen free. You come on in, and that's a terrible thing. But I don't think Congress can remedy anything more. First of all, you need a law, and a lot will depend on the midterms. If the Democrats capture either house, then this whole thing is toast. But the law should say it could at least deal with birth tourism, and possibly could talk about people that had not yet established permanent domicile and evidence of an intent to abide solely by the laws of the United States, something like that. Then you could probably take this up again to the Supreme Court using Kavanaugh's idea that, okay, now we've passed a law, maybe we can stop this. It is possible that either Roberts or Barrett would then flip, and you could do it. But it's going to take both the law of Congress, be taken, number one, you got to win the midterms, get a law of Congress. Both of those are by no means certain.
Yep.
And then you'd have to flip either Roberts or Barrett on the Supreme Court to get a majority. So what I'm saying to you, Zeb, is, like Ann Coulter said, adios, America.
Yeah.
The one thing that confuses me, John, is in America. So if I personally go to Mexico and I have a baby, that baby in most circumstances is considered a United States citizen. So I don't understand why, if I'm from Mexico and come to the United States, why I would assume that they're going to be a United States citizen. They're going to be a Mexican citizen. Doesn't that just make logical sense according to our current laws?
Sure, because they haven't renounced their Mexican citizenship.
Right.
That's right.
That's why. And if they had, that'd be one thing. And if you took some steps to say, no, I renounce all Mexican citizenship, maybe you've got an argument. But as long as you're at best a dual citizen, that is to say, at least a citizen of Mexico and a resident of the United States, that means to me that you're not subject to the jurisdiction thereof under the applicable statutes and constitutional amendment. So I agree with you. I mean, that's the logical way of thinking, but logic is not controlling here. I hate to say it. Let's listen, there's some logic, but it's very, very simplistic.
Yeah.
Okay, people are born on our soil, so what?
John, let me ask you and kind of shotgun some things to you that I'm really concerned about. We've been talking to you over the last 3-4 years on my radio program, now on my podcast, and I got to tell you that I'm really, really concerned that we have slipped. Have we lost America, the values for our Constitution, the value for our laws, the respect for this great country, and taking pride in what we have? I just don't see it anymore. I'm looking at the Gen Zs, and I'm looking at all these people going through the colleges and universities with nothing but hate for this country. And what they're doing now with the Democratic Socialists of America, i.e. communists, straight through and through, I'm really concerned. What are your thoughts?
Well, yes, I am too. And this is one of the things I've been thinking a lot about is, how did this start? And, I'm reading a book now by a guy named Gal Saad, who was an immigrant from Lebanon, who's a brilliant professor. And basically he says one of the problems is you get these so-called parasitic ideas. Once you inject, like a parasite, like someone who infects the body, ideas can infect the mind. And these young people go to school and they go to the university. And this is especially true in blue states. And also what you have is you have the combination of coddled kids, number one, and parenting where they said, oh, I don't want to have my kids go through the stuff I went through. I want them to be coddled. Send them to college. They're anxious. You need trigger warnings for them. And then somebody tells them, all you need to do to be happy is everything's going to be happy if we have socialism.
Yeah.
So the whole idea of starting, of self responsibility and so forth, those are really out the window. And when you see the difference between the way America got great and the way we are today, it's very sad. And it's really a decadent society. I hate to say this. Rome killed itself, and we may be doing it now.
Yeah, you know what? I think John's right, Zeb, because the midterms are going to be crucial. Because
That's right.
if this doesn't go in the right direction, when the new Congress comes in, the first thing they're going to do is eliminate that stupid filibuster rule, and then they're going to have free reign, and the gates are going to open wide up again. Isn't that how you feel about that, John?
Oh yeah. I mean, God help us if the Senate goes blue, and now with Lindsey Graham dying, boy, that's a rough one for holding the Senate. So who knows that if they get a good candidate in Maine, that's better than Plattner. The worst thing that happened to the Republicans is that Plattner dropped out.
Yep.
It's like me talking about Biden. I didn't want Biden. I didn't want Trump to debate Biden in June because I wanted Biden on the ticket because he couldn't possibly win. And that's the way I felt with Plattner. So we've got some challenges there, but at least if we can hold on to the Senate, we can like sort of stay the course to some degree, and so forth. I think it's hopefully with border policies in place, the next, even if it's a blue governor, they may not, underline may not, they may not open the borders because they realize it's going to cause them a problem. Because there's serious financial consequences that come about.
Yeah.
Like, there's a big difference between somebody who immigrated here in 1914 with no safety net and open land to go homestead. That's different. Those people are there and they took their chances. And if they were impoverished, they took that chance. But now immigrants come in, and one of the reasons they come in is for our safety net.
Yeah.
An immigrant family of four gets about $64,000 a year in value from the government.
Mm-hmm. John, when you look at the overall picture of what's going on from California to Seattle, back in Dearborn, Michigan, all across New Jersey, New York with Mondami, it's a concentrated plan, and I'll go toe-to-toe with anybody on this. The Muslims and also this communist movement has been very concentrated, very well orchestrated. Why are we so damn naive? I'm absolutely livid that we've let this happen, and quite frankly, the Democratic Party is going to let these people devour that party. They're going to kill it.
Well, that's what I talk about, Zeb, with these parasitic ideas. Once you take what this writer calls suicidal empathy, we have to be nice to everybody, no matter the consequences, no matter even if they want to kill us. It's almost like saying, oh, you're a burglar in our house, you have a knife or you maybe a gun, but boy, you can do what you want because you're oppressed. Now, that's what our society is all about. It's suicidal empathy. And we're taught with these just sort of really mind-numbing, silly platitudes that don't comport with reality, that, we have to be nice to every class of oppressed people. And I think, Zeb, you and I are two of the only people in the United States that aren't oppressed. I think everybody else is oppressed. A third of all law students are now saying that they have disabilities and therefore they get to take longer to take their tests. That's incredible to me. I mean, I think what a joke. Everybody's gaming the system, and the Democrats are the ones that are spreading these ideas, these parasitic ideas around. And God help us is all I can say, because there's common sense does not work anymore.
Amen.
Yeah, that if I was a person of color and they told me that, I would be insulted to think that I don't have the same ability as everybody else to complete a test. You know, I had a friend on Facebook, and I haven't been on Facebook for 5 years, kind of sum it up in a way that I could really understand where the liberals are coming from. They said, well, America's got such a big table. There's room for everyone. But people don't realize that table is from Rent-A-Center. We've been buying that on a credit card for decades now, and there's no more room left.
There's no more room left, and there certainly should not be room for people who believe that this society is evil.
Yeah.
And then they do not intend to abide by the laws. Thus, in Britain, you have all these centers in which Sharia law now applies, and the government, being wussies, says, okay, you get your own Sharia law. Well, wait a second. We're one nation under God, under the laws. Everybody's supposed to be equal under the Fifth Amendment. Everybody's equal protection. Well, no, not if you have Sharia law, you know. And so and there is a force that's really a lot of the people who are behind the socialist thing come from other countries, and with different value sets. And the whole idea of immigration has always been you come here and you assimilate. Doesn't matter who you are, you assimilate. And people used to love that. So we have put forth a bunch of perverse incentives for people to come here and do their own thing and don't worry about the laws or the customs or any of the things that made us great. You can come in now and destroy it. And we in the Democratic party are here to let you destroy it, because we would be bad people if we didn't let you destroy everything we cared about. Yeah. Well, and then what you do is you just yell at people like you guys and say, look at what these terrible people are.
Yeah. John, I've only got about 4 minutes left, and I want you to respond and back up a little bit in our conversation. We talked about education briefly, and that's the crux of the matter. It's got to start with the changes in our education system. I am an old man, and I can remember going to school, and the first thing that happened was the Pledge of Allegiance, and then a prayer by Mrs. Kilt standing up in front of the classroom. We've got away from the basics of pride and love of this country. How are we ever going to reinstall that?
Well, one way, you just hit on it, one way, at least at the lower levels of education, we've got to get rid of the teachers' unions.
Amen.
Now, how we do that, if we only do that by legislation, because there's a very good reason that you should have unions of auto workers, but not unions of teachers, because what you're doing is you're not regulating. Nobody cares how a car feels, that's going through the assembly line. But we should care about these things called children that should be our primary concern. And yet we're saying to these teachers, we don't care how you teach them. You tell us what's best. We don't care. We don't have any power. No, so it has to start there. Now you get into these colleges. A lot of colleges are going to go bankrupt as it makes no sense to you're not going to be able to stay in business any longer. The kids have figured out that you get out of school with $200,000 in debt. Oof. It's not a good thing. And then you can't get a job. And furthermore, a lot of the kids that go to college, these Gen Zers, they think the world owes them a living. So they get out of college and they don't do anything meaningful. And they end up trying to organize Starbucks or organize Apple stores. But rather than saying, I want to be part of the economy and I want to work real hard and I want to sell some widgets or do whatever I can. So we've got a lot of problems here. And I think you hit the nail on the head. Education is the first thing to reform. Yeah. Now, you've got these colleges where people have tenure. So now how do you change that? I think some of it is public pressure so that hopefully the schools would then say, okay, we want to tell everybody that we're doing better and we have these policies and we're going to have a more rigorous curriculum. That's what you need. You need a curriculum, number one, in which you teach basic political principles of this government and of Western civilization. Western civilization is not taught anymore. So you have Western civilization, basic economics, and that would be some of that right there. If we could do that.
John, I always enjoyed visiting with you on my radio program, and it continues on my podcast. God bless you for taking the time to come on the show. Author and great lawyer, former assistant U.S. attorney in California. Please come back in the future if you would. I'd appreciate it. John O'Connor.
Anytime, Zeb. Take care.
God bless you, my friend. Thank you so much. John, you got to love that guy. He's straightforward and tells it like it is, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, he is.
Okay, we're going to take care of that. It's off, John. The light's off. Are we okay?
I think so.
All right. Hey, listen, I'm also blessed to have another great lady coming on the program, and she's been here many, many times in the past, and believe me, she is known as the terrorist therapist. And like I said, say that fast 5 times. I'm going to pretend that I'm on the couch today because what's going on in this world, and especially in this United States, with the lack of respect for our country and all the crazies trying to take over, I'm going to lay on the couch and you can help me. Dr. Carole Lieberman, how are you?
Hi there, fine, thank you.
Have you ever, in all of your career as a psychiatrist, seen anything that is crazier than what's going on in this country right now, Carole, with the Democratic Socialists, i.e. communists, and the lack of respect in the Democratic Party kowtowing to these people and not wanting to honor the flag or the country during the 250th celebration? Everything is damn Trump, etc. What's going on here, Dr. Lieberman?
Well, it's certainly not Norman Rockwell, not the United States of Norman Rockwell. Yes, it is very discouraging. You know, each day there are more and more things that are just so shocking. This is happening in America, like Mondani, for example, New York after 9/11, elected a terrorist mayor. You know, there are so many things that are just, you kind of like have to scratch your head and think, how could this be happening? But it is. So, and the only way to sanity through this is doing something about it. In other words, you know, it could be very depressing. You could just, you want to sit at home and go crawl back under the covers in bed. So the only way to save yourself and the country is to do something. You know, the antidote to depression and to helplessness and is doing what you can do, you know, whatever it is. If there's some particular issue that you feel strongly about or that you have experience with, or even just joining the party, you know, your local party, something. Every day you need to do something to try to fix America. And then that way you don't feel the depression because you're doing something.
Well, you know, you bring up a really good point. I want to pursue that a little bit, and I know John's got a comment too. But, you know, I said on this program probably a month ago that I would like to develop somehow a gray wolf pack. And by that, I mean those of us that are over 65, in my case, well over 65, kind of a wolf pack to fight back against the idiocy and the lunacy that's being perpetrated upon the American public. I think a lot of people, a lot of seniors in this country, are sitting back in their rocking chairs and not doing anything, and they could help this situation if they get up off the couch and get busy.
It's absolutely true. Yes, it's a... you know, it's a part of the population that could be very powerful. I mean, you don't have to run a marathon. You can make lots of calls for some kind of issue. You know, there are lots of things you could do at home. Or, you know, so yes, I think that would be a great idea.
John, go ahead.
Yeah, there was I could call him a young man. He was over 100 years old that just passed away. Kind of a pillar in our local area, Von Egan, and even in his, I think it was his late 90s, he got on the local city council.
Yeah.
And whether or not I agreed with whatever he said, at least as Dr. Lieberman was saying, he was trying to do something to fix America, to fix our community. And so I think any age, if you got the time to do something, get out there and do it.
You know,
I mean, that's the thing. People who are retired generally have a lot more time. So yes, they could be a very powerful lobby.
We've had, and I know you're going to agree with me, Dr. Lieberman, you know, this country's had its pimples, it's had its warts, it's had its mistakes, it's had to overcome a lot of those mistakes, it's had to sit there and go, oops, we shouldn't have done that. Every country has. But this is still the greatest country in the world, and I'm not ashamed to admit this. On the 4th of July evening, Independence Day evening, when I saw the Independence Day celebration at Washington, D.C., with the speeches and our military veterans, some 107 years old, and they were in wheelchairs lined up on a deck that was facing towards the Washington Monument with the fireworks and everything, I cried like a baby because I'm proud of this country. How do we reinstill this pride? Because these kids haven't got a clue. They don't have a job. They've never had to make a payroll. They don't have any families, but yet they're criticizing and condemning America.
Yes, and a lot of the problem comes from the teachers unions especially. They are so strong and they have been influencing our kids for way too many years now. We've just been kind of caught up to it because of COVID, when parents started to see what's really going on with their kids, what they're learning and all that. So this is a huge, I mean, they're being taught from kindergarten to hate America. And that we're bad. We had slavery and all these kinds of things. I mean, yes, we had slavery. That wasn't our brightest moment. But 99% of what is done, what has been done during the first 250 years is really remarkable, admirable, and people should be proud of that. I mean, there's been a lack of punishment. For example, with the Olympics, people who participate, the athletes who participate in the Olympics, those who turn their back when the national anthem is playing or turn their back to the flag, they should be fired. That should be a rule that they will then be forced to drop out of the Olympics. I mean, it's a little late, of course, when they're standing, when the anthem is playing and all that. It's right at the time that you're supposed to participate. But things like that, and other kinds of situations where people show their lack of patriotism. There should be consequences for this. I mean, the colleges, when the college students were protesting, there weren't consequences. Some colleges had them arrested finally, after months. But then they just got, a slap on the wrist and they got released.
Yeah, absolutely. John, you have a question?
Yeah, when it comes to education, I've got a thought or an idea that's even so radical my wife doesn't like it. I would say just take whatever money is spent on little Johnny, just give it to him in the form of a voucher, and he can choose where he can go to a Catholic school, a Mormon school. I don't care if he goes to the Church of Satan school. Let his parents decide where he goes to school, and then that school has the freedom to teach America and history, everything that child needs to, instead of having to walk around on eggshells like we do in the public schools these days.
Well, yes. I mean, I think there has to be more, though, because you have to make sure that the schools that they would choose to go to are doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. I was reading about and talking about a school in New York where on the Upper West Side, where a woke school, where they had this day. What was it? It was like celebrating minorities kind of day, and mm-hmm. They had things. Some of the things were good, so each grade had to do something for this day. And so one grade, I think fourth grade, read poems from Native Americans. And there were some other things that were good, wholesome. And then the fifth grade, on the other hand, did a skit where they pretended that they were being shot by police. And they dropped down on the floor, and it was a whole anti-police thing.
Oh, geez.
I mean, crazy stuff. And then the woman who organized that day, was very, very left, very woke, and the principal also. And I think this was a school that they had to pay for. It wasn't a public school. So, so not all private schools are equal.
Yeah.
Dr. Lieberman, when you listen to people that I think are extremely left radical, like the women on The View, and what was said about 10 days ago by Sunny Hostin, and she was talking about the United States flag. And she said that when she goes into various neighborhoods where there's an abundance of American flags that are hanging out in front of the house or perhaps in the yard, etc., she develops a fear factor. And when pushed on this, she said, well, when you go into neighborhoods like that with all these flags, it represents white supremacy. I was so livid, I almost took off one of my Tony Lama boots and threw it through the television set. What in the world is the matter with these people?
Yes, she said she doesn't feel safe when there are American flags flying around. I mean, that is crazy. And yet, do you know what happened recently? That her son was trespassing or something, and she told the policeman that she's on The View, that she's a host on The View, like that she tried to get some kind of special treatment for her son. I mean, these women, I'm not sure if I have talked with you about, because I've been working on this for a year and a half. So we may have talked about this briefly, but I've been working for a year and a half on diagnostic criteria for Trump derangement syndrome, mild, moderate, and severe. And I am hoping that I'm getting close to actually making my trek to DC to hand the proposal in to the American Psychiatric Association for consideration to put in their diagnostic and statistical manual. So I had originally, when I started a year and a half ago, I had the women from The View. I kind of was giving them, I don't know, I was being generous, and I had them in the mild category. They have gone up to the moderate, at least. Similar with Jimmy Kimmel. He was in the mild. He is now in the moderate. People are having it more and more. They are getting more severe and more intense, and showing more signs of Trump derangement syndrome in all these different ways. And it's just, for example, the people who are after ICE. It's because ICE represents to them the current representation of Trump. It's just almost as good as ramming their car into Trump.
Let me ask you this, and I'm a little cautious in how I verbalize this, but I'm going to be blunt. With what you see, what you hear, and what you read as to what's going on in this country, and what I see going on across the country, are we on the verge, honestly, of a civil war to protect our Constitution and our values that this country was founded on?
I think we are getting closer and closer. That was the question after the election, the most recent election, where Trump was elected for a second term. There were all these theories, rumors, and so on, whispers that there was going to be a civil war if he won, and there hasn't been yet. But there are these rumblings. I mean, look at there are so many divisions, not only Republican and Democrat and all that, but white and black. I mean, not that that's something new, but it's just it's increasing in intensity. Look at the recent killing, the recent trial that there was of where a young man killed an Austin, I can't remember their names right now, but you know what I'm talking about, at a sports game, and he knifed him. And the interesting thing that really got overlooked in a lot of the reports about this is that when he he knifed him and then he ran away. He tried to claim it was self-defense. If it was self-defense, he wouldn't have run away. But anyway, he ran away. But some policeman or some kind of authority caught him and said, I have the alleged killer, or not killer at that point, but knifer or something, the alleged criminal. And he said, the killer said, not alleged, I did it. And
right.
That is so important, because that is the attitude that is increasing and is the most dangerous. In other words, people being proud, thinking that they are doing something valuable. They are a martyr, that if they kill white people, or if they kill Republicans, or if they, some people from the Supreme Court just asked for more money for protection and all that. I mean, killing is really, there's certainly ICE. If I run over ICE, I'm a martyr. And I heard what you were talking about before, sympathetic empathy. That was my latest podcast, my terrorist therapist show podcast. I talked about sympathetic empathy and how we are killing ourselves. We're being too sympathetic to people who want to kill us. Suicidal empathy, suicidal empathy.
Well, I want to talk real quick before I run out of time in this segment. I want to talk about your book, Lions and Tigers and Terrorists, Oh My, How to Protect Your Child in a Time of Terror. Again, I'm praying that this doesn't come to fruition. I'm praying our situation doesn't get worse. However, with what's going on with the country of Iran and what's going on with their threats to increase terrorism around the globe and primarily aimed at us, the United States of America, what do you tell your children in this current state of affairs with every time you turn a street corner, you better have your eyes in the back of your head?
Yes. You do have to talk to your kids about terrorism. You know, a lot of parents say, oh, that's not really a danger. They don't need to know about that. I don't want to scare them. That's the typical comment. But the truth is, there are more terrorists, real terrorists, radical Islamist terrorists, and then there are all other kinds of terrorists, you know, with accelerationism, where it's not only the red and the green. You know, you were beginning to talk about that before, the terrorists, the green, and then the socialist communists, the red. They formed an alliance, and even though they don't agree with a lot of the things that each other represents, but they agree on destroying America. And now there's this accelerationism where lots of people are getting into the act. They just want to destroy America. So, you know, and so they're terrorists in a way too. But I'm just talking right now about the radical Islamist terrorists. There are more in our country now than there ever have been, certainly more than before 9/11. And it is people, adults, grown-ups are in denial about just how serious this is. And, you know, of course, the 25th anniversary of 9/11 is coming up. That is going to be a prime time for terrorists to attack.
I would ask you a favor, and I need to continue this conversation at a date sooner than later, and that's, of course, Dr. Carole Lieberman. Will you come back in a couple of weeks, and we'll continue this on, because I think you've got valuable information that we need to discuss. Would you do that for me?
Sure, absolutely.
I'll look forward to it. Ladies and gentlemen, her book, Lions and Tigers and Terrorists, Oh My, How to Protect Your Child in a Time of Terror. And she is the best. I really appreciate her, the terrorist therapist, Dr. Carole Lieberman. God bless you, and I'll be in touch. Thank you so much. Thank you. Wow, a busy day, and it's warm in here. I'm sweating like the only fat girl at a Saturday night dance right now. I'll tell you what. Ladies and gentlemen, we're honored to have a worship pastor from the Grace Chapel Church over in Rupert, and his name is Matthew Johnson. Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Good afternoon, Mr. Bell. It's great to actually meet you for the first time. Thank you for having me over today.
Well,
really appreciate it.
Some people wouldn't agree with what you call a treat. Thank you very much. But no, I tell you what, it's nice to have you on our podcast. And I'm going to get right to it for a lack of time. And you rode your Harley over here, and I didn't even hear you pull in the yard.
Well, that's because it's a gold wing, not a Harley.
It's a gold wing. It's not a Harley. Okay. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about what you did to help celebrate America's 250th birthday celebration on Independence Day. It was a rather unique situation where I heard that you did a replication of George Washington and his prayer at Valley Forge.
Yeah, actually, there's a little bit more to it. So my family's been saving up for a family vacation to D.C. for a couple years. And so we took our kids, and while I was there, I got this call saying, hey, we had somebody drop out. We've got a patriotic program coming up. Would you mind playing George Washington for it? And absolutely, I was totally honored to do it. And so, but I was there. I think I may have even been at Mount Vernon when I was requested to do it. So it was pretty special.
Really? Okay, give us the summation of what you did, how you did it. Did you have the white horse standing next to you? Did you do it with fake snow? What did you do?
My part was really small. It was a great program that I was just happy to do a very small portion. I walked out dressed as George Washington and knelt down. If you picture the painting of Valley Forge where George Washington is in prayer, that was what I was, replicating. And so fun thing about the prayer that they gave me, the script that they gave me, I didn't know this until after the fact, but that prayer is actually largely lifted from the very first prayer of the very first Continental Congress.
Yes.
So when you look at the words that the first Congress prayed and wrote down, that was basically my prayer that I gave as George Washington. Pretty unique.
I've done a lot of those type of things that you're talking about that you were involved in. And if you're really going to get involved with the audience, you have to put yourself into the original person's place, i.e. Washington. What did you feel like when you gave that prayer?
Well, so we had just come back, like I said, from D.C., and I was glad to be able to do it. I considered it a real honor because when we went to D.C. and went to Mount Vernon and looked at everything that we saw about who George Washington was, it gave me a real appreciation for the role. And, here you have a man who is a living legend. Like for example, the last time since Washington, when a general successfully won a war and then surrendered power, was 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
It was a Roman general who did that the last time. So when George Washington won the war against the most powerful nation in the world, the most powerful empire on earth, the British Empire, he won the war, and then he surrendered his sword to Congress. He said, this is going to be a nation where the people rule. Matter of fact, he established the standard of a civilian being in charge of the military.
Right.
That was a brand new thing. Nothing had ever happened like that in the whole world. And so George Washington instantly became a living legend. And so for me to be called and ask if I would play him, absolutely, I'll do that.
Matthew, can I call you Matt?
Oh, that's fine.
All right, Matt. What happened to us? What happened to our country? You know, I'm a lot older than you are. As a matter of fact, I'm the oldest person in this room, and that's kind of overwhelming to me. But what happened to our country? I mean, what happened to pride in the United States of America? And what happened to our belief in God? I can't imagine 30, 40, 50 years ago standing up and not doing the Pledge of Allegiance, standing up and not having a prayer at school in the morning. And all of a sudden, everything has just been pushed down into the drain.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. Because I'm a pastor, I'm going to talk like one.
You should. Never be ashamed of that, my friend.
Yeah. So the thing is, I have a lot of friends and close people to me who land on both sides of the political spectrum, who call themselves heartfelt, devoted Christians. And so the question is, to me, is not, whether or not Jesus is a Republican or a Democrat, because Jesus is neither of those things.
That's right.
Jesus is a king. And I think that there's going to be quite a number of people who get quite a little offended when Jesus comes back and establishes his kingdom. And we start hearing language like the king has spoken,
Amen.
And so,
amen.
So to me, this is, honestly, here's another, just what I think. Jesus doesn't care about whether America succeeds or fails. He's got a much bigger perspective and scope than we do. And so what Jesus cares about is, are you in right relationship with him? Have you fully surrendered your heart to him? And have you made him your Savior and your Lord?
I agree with that up to a point. I want to back up, though, retroactively and say, I think this country, the United States, was blessed by God because of our forefathers and their commitment and their faith in God.
I agree. And so that's what I come back to is it's not about whether we are being a good nation or not. What matters is, are our hearts aligned with God?
That's exactly
and so
right.
That's what it comes down to in every way. And I think that we can all get our blinders up about what that means. But I would much rather have a conversation about what it means to be a Christian than what it means to be an American.
Absolutely.
Because there are ideals that are American. I wrestle with this. There's ideals that are American ideals that come into conflict with Christianity. For example, an American ideal that we hold really strongly to is be an independent person, freedom, live by your own, stand on your own 2 feet, take care of your own business. Don't be a baby. Make sure that you're taking care of yourself and don't rely on anybody else to take care of you. Well, the Bible tells us the complete opposite of that. We're supposed to be fully surrendered to Jesus. We're supposed to be fully, have our heart completely surrendered to him. And so how do you wrestle with that? What do you do with that?
Well, I'll just tell you my meaning right now. Freedom, total freedom, comes from believing in Jesus Christ. Yeah. And then all those other freedoms fall in line. That's my belief.
Yeah, I don't disagree at all. And something powerful that I heard when we were at Mount Vernon is there was an actor, he was portraying a role, and he said the freedom that the general fought for, he kept calling Washington the general. The freedom that the general fought for was not the freedom to do whatever we want, because that's called licentiousness, and people are going to get hurt and killed if people could do whatever they want. The freedom that the general fought for was the freedom to do what is right and to do what is good.
This country was founded upon principles and morals. And quite frankly, in the last 30 years, we've thrown that away. And in the last couple of months, we're seeing a destruction like I've never seen before in all my years, with almost avowment by one party to go to a communistic society that has never worked anywhere in the world. It's failed every time they've tried something like this. And it's almost like you want to take the head off the statues of all the people that were great in fighting for this country and dying for this country. And these people don't care because they don't have the knowledge, many of which have never had a job, never had to support their family, never had to make a payroll. And we're living with a society right now that absolutely is uneducated. Would you concur?
Here's what I will say. It amazes me. Again, my moral compass is the Bible.
It should
and
be.
so
Should
so
be.
what I look at is, what does the Bible say? Again, like, I have loved ones who find themselves on the other end of a political spectrum from me, who call themselves devoted Christians, and they see things, they see things in the Bible and emphasize things in the Bible that are different than what I emphasize. And again, that's where I live. That's the world I live in, is, hey, let's have a real conversation about what does the Bible say we should be living like. And it's like, for example, is it just as wrong to say that we should not care for people who need help? Is it wrong to say that we should ignore people who need help? Like, Jesus said, when you give somebody a cup of cold water in my name, you're giving it to me. He said, he gave an example to people what it's going to be like in the end times. You came and visited me in prison. Back then the prison system was, if your family didn't bring you food, you starved to death.
Yeah.
You came and you helped me when I was sick. You did all these things for me. And so I think that a lot of people care deeply about social welfare, and they do it in the name of Jesus. And I can't say they're wrong for doing that. Now, again, I look at it and say, let's look at principles. Let's look at, like, how would God have us to live our lives? And that's an important conversation to have. Like,
I think one thing that would kind of open up the conversation for everyone is Psalms 46:10. Be still and know that I am God. That opens the door for everything right there. Those 8 words really sum it up. Be still, be quiet, be careful, pay attention, whatever, and know that I am God. And we forgot that.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. I do want to agree with something you said about how people in our nation are uneducated. There is a move to tell people that we were not founded on Christian principles. Like you said, there's a move to do that. If you look at any of the prayers that Congress prayed, first of all, let's acknowledge that Congress prayed. At the founding of the nation, Congress prayed. You look at the end of those prayers, they say, in the name of Jesus Christ our Lord.
And Matt,
That's
here,
really important.
You can't see the book right there, because if I pull it out, everything on this overwrought shelf is going to fall. But it's a book called The American Patriot's Almanac. Mm-hmm. And it was written by Dr. William Bennett. I'm sure you know who that man is. And in that book are numerous prayers of our forefathers, patriots, and people that lived in that time, with always the in Jesus' name.
And so, again, I'm not saying that Benjamin Franklin was a saint. He's on our $100 bill. He was no saint. And you could make the argument that he was anywhere from agnostic to, you could throw out all kinds of things. And those are valid conversations to have. What was the faith of the founding fathers? But who
was a saint?
Well, I mean, look, again, exactly. Like, everybody's got checkers in their past.
I say they've got holes in their screen door.
Yeah, right. Now, but again, I think that what you said before about how our nation was blessed because we live by godly principles, I couldn't agree more. There's things that we have enjoyed because we live by godly principles. The example that we love to talk about is the ending of slavery. It was Jesus who said that everybody is the equal, before me, that I am the way, the truth, and the life. Paul said about Jesus, there's no longer, there's no slave, no free. There's no Jew or Gentile. There's no, in other words, different cultures don't matter. If we're in Jesus, there's freedom there, and there's an equal standing before God.
Absolutely.
And Jesus is the one who lifted up women. All these things that it came from Jesus. The people of his day, you couldn't even speak out in court as a woman in Jesus's day, but he elevated them. And so I think that because we have stood on these principles, we call it democracy. But where did we get it from? Of course we got it from the Magna Carta, and fine, but where did it get it from? It came from Jesus. He changed the world because of his principles.
And we've got away from that. We've got away from that because of a society that, I'm just going to say this, and I've only got a couple of minutes left, Matt. We've turned into a cowardly society. We're afraid to ruffle somebody's feathers by telling the truth.
I think that the love of God is the most attractive thing in the world, right? But there's no need for salvation. There's no need for a relationship with God if you think you're doing fine. until a person recognizes that they need someone else to step in and be a part of the solution, they're not going to go looking for
Amen.
one. And so, look, I'm not here to bash anybody and tell them how much of a sinner they are. I don't know about you, but I don't need anybody's help knowing how bad of a sinner I am.
I don't look at the mirror very often.
but I mean, again, we could talk about sins and we could talk about problems forever.
Amen.
But the world I live in, I believe strongly in talking about the solution. He's got a name. His name is Jesus. And he's even got opinions about how things should be.
Well, I'll tell you, I really want to thank you for taking the time to be here. However, I'm going to put you on the hook that you're going to come back in the near future and we're going to have a longer segment.
Anytime.
I look forward to it. Ladies and gentlemen, Matthew Johnson, and he is the worship pastor at Grace Chapel in Rupert.
Yeah, Grace Church in Rupert. Yep.
Grace Church. I'm sorry. Thank you very much. I'm glad for the correction.
It's
Thank
in the
you.
description.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
It's in the description.
Oh, it's on there. They can read that or they can listen to me mess it up.
They can click right on the link and head to the Grace Church.
Sounds great. Thank you,
I
John.
appreciate you inviting me out. Thank you.
And you're very welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to wrap it up and put it back in the box for this week on our podcast. Zeb Bell, along with my partner, John Ellis, we wish you the very best. Again, I want to reiterate, please keep Pastor Alex in your prayers and his wife, Barbara, back in Tennessee, and hopefully we can get him back on the air this next week on Zeb at the Ranch. Until then, God bless.